My leg had finally healed. I was on the mend. I was getting back to being myself again. But that came with a price. And one day, that price had to get paid. We're all sitting in the living room. Me, my older brother, my younger sister, and my youngest brother. We're all sitting there in the living room and we're chilling and we're watching this movie called Liar Liar. Man, wasn't that me for most of my life? Embarrassingly so. Well, there's a part in that movie, if you've ever seen it, where they play something in a courtroom. And you would definitely think any sane human being would say to themselves, this is not reasonable to show to children. They don't need to understand what this is. So initially, it was me, my little brother, little sister. We were all watching this movie together, and in walks my older brother. I don't know, 3/4 of the way through when the scene is in there, the movie. So I walk up, fast forward the movie, past the scene, and then just carry on. Because anyone that's in a logical space in their brain would not want a child to be watching a particular scene in that movie. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but there's a particular scene you wouldn't want your kids to watch. And my brother lost it. I mean, I'm talking nuclear death. I mean, he was just screaming about this and about that and just going off. Why'd you change it? Why'd you fast forward? And I'm just trying to not get into it with him. I'm like, dude, they don't need to watch that. You've seen this movie before. You know what's coming next. And eventually it just finally got to this deteriorated point where so often it did, where people just started walking out of the room. Little brother goes to his room. Little sister goes to her room. And I'm looking at this whole thing. And I just decided to bounce out. Time to go. Not interested in doing this madness. Not interested in doing this mess. I'm all good. And so I go upstairs. And now my older brother is saying my younger brother stole this video game and did this and did that and da. Well, I'm sitting there and I look over. So I had my side over here to the left. My brother's side was over to the right, where he still resides to this day. And I look at the situation and bam, wouldn't you know, the very thing that he is causing a commotion about is sitting right there on his dresser. Well, I get that and I go downstairs and say, here it is. Here's what you're looking for. And he goes, where did you get that? And I said, it was literally sitting right on your dresser. And he goes, no, it wasn't. You're lying. Steve gave it to you. And let me tell you, that did not go well. Because I am not good at being called out by people and called a liar at that period of time in my life. See, that's what us redneck trailer trash people called fighting words. I had all this pent up anger and frustration because when I was laying on that pull-out couch in the middle of the living room, I couldn't do anything to protect my brothers and sisters except use my voice. And my voice didn't do much, as you can imagine. I was immobilized. And he just looked at me and said, you're a liar. And let me tell you, I saw red. And I got up in his face and he pushed me, and I pushed him right up against the door, and we just started wailing on each other. I think the crazy thing about these fights that we would have is my parents were like the referees in hockey. Let me tell you. What they would do is they would just give us a little while. You know, they wouldn't get right in there to stop it immediately. Maybe they enjoyed the entertainment. I don't know. But they would let it roll for a bit. And he's hitting me, I'm hitting him, and blow to blow to blow, going back and forth with these fists of mine. And as I'm thinking about this, I haven't been in a fist fight since this moment, which is crazy. Coming from the madness I come from, I mean, that's a Looney Tune. Haven't been in a fist fight since this moment. And finally, after we both landed 30, 40 shots each, which is pretty weak now that I'm thinking about it. I was not some UFC fighter, all right? I'm a redneck wannabe fighter. That's the best way to say it. We both landed a bunch of shots. Maybe 30 is an exaggeration. I don't remember how many. And my dad breaks it up and says, what's going on here? What's going on here? I mean, he saw the entire thing. I mean, the dude's standing 8 feet away from this madness going on. And I said, well, Dad, this. And my mother walks over and goes, it's all your fault. You're treating your brother like this and da-da-da-da-da. Now, meanwhile, I had gotten out of the conflict and just let him spout for 25 minutes. But the resentment, rage, and anger that I had inside of myself just came forth. And we were going to fight it out until somebody's knocked out or somebody intervenes. And at that point, I had had enough. I said, all right, I am out of here. And I went and packed up all my stuff. I mean, I literally had gotten a cast off my leg less than a week. I said, I am gone. Called up a buddy of mine, and he had this beautiful attic for me to move into without air conditioning in the middle of summer. That's a true friend. Only cost me $75 a month. Let me tell you. Maybe I got a little burnt up there. You know what I mean? Maybe I got a little fried because it was hot. But I never went into that place anyway unless I was, going to lay down and go to sleep. Always out. Always had to be doing something at that point in my life. So I packed everything up. Packed it all up. And I said my goodbyes very briefly, and I was gone. Man, do I got a lot of shame about that. In my life, I've had so much shame and guilt. Not because of leaving, but because I left my brothers and sisters behind. And I'd made a promise to myself when I was very young that I'd somehow help them get out. That somehow, some way, I'm going to help them get free. I didn't understand at the time that meant that I had to get free. That I had to get out. No, didn't understand that. All I understood was that I had to go. This had run its course. And I had a way out. And I think the thing that is the hardest part of this entire mess is at the time I only worked with my dad. I didn't have a job. I didn't have money saved. I didn't have nothing. I just worked with my dad ever since I was a little kid. Man, I wish he would have taught me something about saving money when I was a kid. I really do. I'll have to tell that story. I'll throw it on the list here. When I made a bunch of money as a kid. Yet, I just sent it, man. I was at the end of myself. Have you ever been to the end of yourself in a situation and there's just no more moving forward? It's literally like, I'm out. I'm done. This is over. There's nothing that can be done to change this outcome. We're done. That happened for me that day. And I love my family, my brothers and sisters, despised and hated my parents and my older brother. But I had reached the end of my time in that home. I had reached the end. I knew that there was nowhere else to move forward to. And if I stayed there, things were only going to escalate. And I was going to do things that could be seen from the perspective that somebody might end up in jail. And I didn't want to go to jail. I left everybody behind. They were so young. And I didn't know any other way. I just had to get out of there. But I carried guilt, so much guilt and shame for that, for decades. I mean, I thought that this was being in a healthy family. But the truth is, being in a healthy family, your parents want you to move out and start a life. Mine never did. My parents wanted me to be there for the rest of my life. Move out? No. Not my family. No such thing as moving out. That's what dysfunction does. It chains us to these relationships. And they become so rigid. I'm the scapegoat of my family. I'm the screw up of my family. That was me. And that was the role that I had to play. I didn't escape that role for a very long time. I worked a transient construction job for a long time, traveling all over the country, building Lane Bryant's and Panera Breads, and I finally realized I had a little bit of talent at doing drop ceilings. I could outcut anybody on a drop ceiling. Master, absolute master at it. For whatever reason, looking up and thinking in 3D and, cutting the tile from the behind of it, I was exceptional. I mean, exceptional. I mean, there's still some of my work around here in my hometown over at, I don't know if it's a studio anymore, but there's a radio personality named Brother Weeze, and I murdered Brother Weeze's ceiling. I mean, creme de la creme, that thing. And there were so many weird angles in that building, but I killed it. That ceiling looked fire. And that became my life. Working, trying to make money, trying to figure this world out and this life out as a mangled, broken, destroyed man that didn't understand how to be, didn't understand life at all. At all. The thing that's wild is when I left there, it was about 2.5, 3 weeks in when I woke up in the middle of the night in this new place without the chaos, without the fear, without the chronic sense of dread. When I realized that there was a thing called peace and safety. That was a breaking point for me in my life. I did not understand what it felt like to not be on guard all the time. I didn't understand what it felt like to be at peace, to feel safe. Those were foreign thoughts to me. Foreign. And it really, like, going back there in my mind and thinking about the mindset I had and the shift that I made to who I was slowly becoming and learning about this whole new way of life that I did not understand. I think I was genuinely afraid of the lack of chaos in my life. I was genuinely afraid of being calm and at peace. Weird. Now that I look back on this at 41, this is weird, man. To look at that mangled, destroyed person and remember how they thought the world worked and how wrong they were. I was so wrong. But that was the environment I was trained up in. That's what I was built in, forged in. Be afraid all the time. Your voice doesn't matter. You're not important. You're not good enough. You're not valuable. No one's coming to rescue you. No one cares about you. Nobody sees you as important. That was the world I grew up in. Now being on the other side of this and being somewhat grown up and being in the position where I can see this in other people. And from time to time, I get the opportunity to help them learn to love themselves into wholeness, which took me decades to do. I marvel at that. There's no greater feeling for me. Maybe playing on stage is close, but then witnessing someone blossom into who they were meant to be, not who they were made to be, who they were meant to be. To watch them uninstall all the bad programming that their family or life or coach or somebody put into them, and watching them discover the blessing they can be to the world. I don't even know how to describe the level of joy that brings me as a person, to witness it, to witness the becoming of somebody, the unveiling of someone's greatness, and to have my small part to play, that through suffering and the wisdom I've learned, I get to impart this person with something precious and brilliant. I got to teach them the divine gift of the permission to be human, to be oneself. I mean, my mind is just running through the Rolodex of all these people that I've had the privilege to interact with in my life, and all the joy and transformation they've gone through. Maybe if maybe I'll interview some of those people on this like YouTube podcast, whatever this thing is someday, and have those conversations. I think that would be really cool. That is the joy of suffering. I look at my past not as a burden or something to escape anymore. I look at it as my ability to connect to any human wherever they are. Because I have suffered, I now can serve.